Well, hey everybody, I stumbled across a memorial here in the Utah mountains a few days ago that frankly captured my attention and my imagination. You know, I've traveled this stretch of highway 100 times, but I never knew of a man named Masashi Goto. Masashi was an ambitious aviator who dreamed of piloting an airplane around the world. The year was 1929. Masashi's dream ended in tragedy on the 4th of July. Well, thanks for joining Profiling Evil and welcome aboard. Now, please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button so that you get more of our videos and you're taking advantage of this new series that I've been kind of putting pieces here and there on, Twisted Tales. It's a journey into the mysterious events where strange occurrences and unsolved cases are brought into the spotlight for curious minds like yours. Now, in each episode, we quickly dive into real-life enigmas, examining the theories, the evidence, and historical accounts to uncover hidden truths and possible explanations. But this series isn't just about storytelling. It's a forum where you can contribute insight, spark some constructive discussion, and just maybe crack a case that's baffled people for decades. From long-forgotten secrets to modern mysteries, I've been having a blast with Twisted Tales. Don't get to do many of them, but I think you're going to enjoy it. So let's talk about the curious case of Masashi Goto. Now, Masashi Goto was an ambitious aviator, the first Japanese citizen to earn a pilot's license here in the United States. Now, Goto envisioned a grand journey inspired by cutting-edge pilots like Harriet Quimby, who was the first female pilot to cross the English Channel. Now, Quimby died in a crash in 1912 on a flight over Dorchester Bay near Boston. But this guy watched the air shows, places like where Elizabeth Coleman, the first African-American woman to hold a pilot's license, flew stunts. Coleman was best known as Brave Bessie in flying circles. She died in a plane crash in 1926. And then, of course, there was Amelia Earhart. If you can solve that one, I think we've written somewhere. Now, Masashi Goto's dream was to pilot a plane from America across Europe and finally to reach Tokyo, a journey that would span continents and bring honor to both his family and the Japanese immigrant community in the United States. But on July 4th, 1929, his dream met a tragic end when his plane crashed during a fierce thunderstorm in the Uinta Mountains, just east of Park City, Utah. So it's just a little bit this way from here. Now, Goto's adventurous spirit and his journey began well before he took to the skies. At age 20, this guy left his home in Oita, and I hope I said that right, Oita, Japan, and he joined a French cargo ship crew, traveling the world by sea for nearly 2 years. Now, after his stint on the ship, he decided to explore more, just quitting his job outright and spending time in England before ultimately settling in Los Angeles in 1926. It was in California that Goto discovered a new passion, flying. Having seen the world from the sea, he longed to experience it from the skies. And determined to follow his dream, Goto began working as a gardener. Kind of weird, but get this, he was saving every penny he could afford to build an airplane. Now, alongside him was his friend, Takeo Watanabe, a superintendent at the Crawford Aircraft Company in Venice, California. Goto dedicated himself to building his own one-seat biplane. Originally, Goto and Watanabe had this dream of flying together, but they couldn't afford to build a plane that was powerful enough to handle both people. So they decided that it would be just one person and Goto would be the pilot. Together, they spent 3 years and around $4,500 constructing this airplane, which they assembled in a Venice garage. Now, in today's dollars, that's about $85,000. They named the plane Ryofu Go, meaning Thunderbird. And it was powered by a Pratt & Whitney 5-cylinder engine that was designed to carry this 14-foot-long aircraft with ease. They built a two-wing plane with a wingspan of 22 feet. The plane's tail number, 4498. Now, Goto embarked on this long-anticipated journey on July 1st, 1929. His first leg took him up the California coast to Oakland. On the 2nd of July, he flew to Reno, Nevada, and then on the 3rd of July into the Salt Lake Valley, touching down at the municipal airport. Now, his arrival was celebrated by the Utah Japanese community, who proudly came out to greet this guy, knowing that Goto's flight symbolized much more than personal achievement. It was a testament to their collective ambition and pride. Well, early the next morning, Independence Day in America, July 4th, Goto departed Salt Lake City for New York. Inside his plane, he carried a letter that was addressed to Watanabe's father in Japan. He had an American flag that he planned on carrying with him around the world to finally present it to Japanese officials upon his arrival in Tokyo. He was flying up from Salt Lake City through Parley's Canyon, and he passed Park City. Well, he soon reached the base of the Uinta mountain range where an ominous cloud was gathered. Now, wisdom would have prompted Goto to turn around and wait out the storm. But he, again, was an inexperienced pilot, new at this, 3 years. He pressed on, climbing in elevation with hopes of getting above the storm clouds. But it didn't work, and soon he was engulfed by a violent thunderstorm. 4 days later, when the crash site was discovered on July 8th, it was found by a sheepherder named Nymphus Simmons. You can't make this stuff up. It was theorized that Goto likely attempted to navigate either below the storm or above the storm, but he was at ground level. And flying at such a low altitude reduced his ability to react to any unforeseen challenges like downdrafts or dramatic changes in the mountain landscape. And you can see from this video that this is really rough country up here. In fact, I used to travel through this area as a kid almost every weekend going up to my stepdad's ranch. And there we would come across this area. I never knew that this crash site occurred in this area. But I thought I'd just take a moment and pause here and share some of the feelings I had as I stopped along the way and stopped at Goto's memorial. The place where he crashed this airplane was a place called Wolf Creek Pass. And as a kid, we used to go across this thing on an old dirt road after working up at the ranch. But today it's a 2-lane highway. And as Goto was flying his plane eastbound, he hit a huge thunderstorm. And that thunderstorm caused him to start looking for a way to go around the storm clouds. Now, it was in rugged terrain, just like this right here. And what Goto did was, as he tried to find his way along, he took that plane and he ended up crashing into the side of a mountain, just about this area right here. And I'm going to try to simulate kind of what that area might have looked like as we fly the drone up this canyon. But the idea was that he was hoping that he could get around this thing. Now, some people are speculating that he nosedived into the canyon wall, and that's how he died. That's not accurate according to reports that I found in the old newspapers of the area. In fact, what's more likely is that he was looking for a place where he could lay that plane down without too much damage. Hopefully trying to find some place where there was a little fewer trees and a little more open space. And what it appears to me, and this is based on my experience as a pilot, that he probably stalled the aircraft at the last minute as he was looking for a spot to set the plane down and slammed into the side of the mountain. Now, he didn't hit anything head on because the nose of his plane was in good shape according to all the news reports. But what he did do was damage the wings and apparently hit the ground hard enough that it threw him face first into the dash of his airplane. And that snapped his neck, according to the medical examiner. Well, flying at such a low altitude reduced Goto's ability to react to any unforeseen challenges, things like downdrafts or dramatic changes in the mountain landscape. And you've seen now how rugged this is. It's likely that Goto misjudged the terrain and collided with the mountain walls. Although some speculate that he might have attempted something called a pancake landing, and that's supported by damage that's on the plane, which again, there wasn't a nosedive, so perhaps he made this attempt to do a pancake landing. Well, after the crash, Goto's buddy, Takeo Watanabe, came to Utah to try to recover the pilot's body and get that damaged airplane. And while he was there, he and a guy named R.H. Warner of the Boeing company determined that the plane's engine and structure were actually in working order at the time of the crash. So that damage didn't support any theory that Goto did a nosedive into the ground. And again, everything kind of suggests that he probably pancaked into the mountain. Now, that led aviation experts to opine that Goto may have tried to even land that plane. Their theory is supported by the fact that Goto was still wearing his parachute, and there were no signs of any attempt to get out of the aircraft or to deploy that parachute. So he very well may have been trying to land it on a mountainside. And again, that would be really tricky, especially in a storm. And you know what? It's not unusual to get a snowstorm that high in those mountains in July. Now, post-mortem examination determined that Masashi Goto likely died suddenly when the plane struck rocks and debris on the ground. There's evidence to suggest that the pilot was thrown against the instrument panel in the crash, and they believe that he broke his neck. Now, Watanabe returned his fallen friend to Los Angeles, where he was buried in the Evergreen Cemetery, plot 2974. It's assumed that Watanabe notified Goto's family, but I can't find anything to support this theory, nor can I find anything showing a family tree for Masashi Goto, at least looking at Ancestry and Family Search. But I went to Masashi's grave in Los Angeles recently, and I thought a little more about him. In fact, I talked with a pilot friend of mine who is very experienced in those old aircraft. His father used to have one that he would fly around just for fun. He was a commercial pilot, so is my buddy. He indicated that the throttling on these things was very technical. You actually had to speed up and slow down just to move the plane around with the... Although Masashi Goto didn't achieve his ultimate goal of flying around the world, his memory endures. The Japanese Association of Utah erected a monument near his crash site along Highway 35, just a few miles east of Park City. This cenotaph, which stands as a quiet but powerful tribute, reads, "This monument, erected by the Japanese Association of Utah to Masashi Goto, 1885 to 1929, Japanese aviator, in his flight over America, Europe, and Asia. Airplane, the Ryofu Go, crashed 3,800 feet southeast of the spot of this memorial on July 4th, 1929. Well, hey folks, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and I got to tell you about one of my new secret weapons. It's called newspapers.com, and I am on there all the time, digging up old headlines, solving pieces of criminal puzzles, and even uncovering wild stuff from my own family tree. So if you love going down the rabbit hole as much as I do, whether it's chasing a cold case or uncovering grandma's mysterious past, this is a place to start. Now you can use our special link for a sweet discount, and yes, I do get a small commission, so you're helping grow the channel too. So just head to the link in the description below and start exploring. The original location for the monument was at the actual crash site, and it stood there for several years until World War II began. And people angry with the Japanese people, and at a time when anger and concentration camps were happening, the monument was shot up and knocked over. It lay on the ground for several years. In fact, the original monument also had some of the frame of Goto's plane next to it, but that was stolen and salvaged during the war years. Now, many years later, in a gesture of respect and remembrance, the Uinta National Forest Service and the Utah Japanese American Citizens League moved and rededicated the monument to this location. ensuring that Goto's legacy would never be forgotten. His body, again, lies in Los Angeles, but in Utah, his spirit lingers as a symbol of adventure, determination, and the courage to chase a vision across borders, mountains, and even into the eye of a storm. I found it fitting as I flew the drone around the area where Masashi Goto's memorial sits that a sheepherder's camp was located about 100 feet away. Remember, it was a sheepherder named Nymphus who discovered his body 95 years ago. Perhaps the sound of sheep and the whistle of sheepherders is joined by the spirit of Masashi Goto. And as I walked away from that monument that I just stumbled across in the quiet solitude of the Uinta Mountains, I looked back one more time at that old stone monument, weathered by time and nestled just off a secluded road. I quickly returned one more time and I brushed away bits of moss and I read the words etched into its surface. The story of Masashi Goto, that young Japanese pilot who crashed nearly a century ago. His plane is a symbol of his dreams, broken and shattered in these beautiful mountains. Masashi's journey was cut short here in a place far from his native Japanese home. But standing there, just for a moment, surrounded by the whisper of the wind through the pines and the vastness of this wilderness, I was struck by the loneliness of his final moments. Imagine he was in a foreign land, under a dark and turbulent sky, and he faced the mountains alone. He's a brave soul with dreams of bridging continents, carrying a vision that went beyond boundaries and beyond cultures. This guy wasn't just an aviator. He was an ambassador of courage and hope. And this little monument, although humble and fading, is all that marks his presence here and all that marks his place in time. It feels like a reminder of both human fragility and human resilience. How a single life, even one that ended far too soon, can continue to touch other people long after it's gone. I couldn't help but feel a deep respect, even a reverence for Masashi Goto. Because in this quiet place, he isn't forgotten. The mountains seem to hold his memory, and the monument stands as a testament to his bravery, to his dreams, to his spirit, and it's a reminder that some journeys, even those unfinished, might echo for lifetimes. And I'd like to know your thoughts on this video, and I hope that you'll put them down below. Again, this is Twisted Tales, so we're having a little bit of fun and stepping away from true crime in the current realm. Remember to be kind and constructive in your comments, and take time to read each other's comments. Weigh in on each other. I hope you like the imagery from the area, and I hope it helps you better understand what occurred here on July 4th, 1929, almost 100 years ago. And I hope you're enjoying this little segment that I call Twisted Tales. I only do a few of them here and there because not many people seem interested in them, but I'm really excited about Twisted Tales because it gives me a chance to look at old cases that are no longer talked about. So make sure you're finding balance in your true crime consumption, folks. Too much ugliness only results in more ugliness. So make sure you're spending some time in good and uplifting activities that help you realize there's great hope for our future. And look for Profiling Evil on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you like audio podcasts, your true crime on the go, make sure you're tuning in to Profiling Evil's podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget about that profilingevil.com website where you can sign up for our digital newsletter, the BOLO. BOLO stands for Be on the Lookout. And the only way you're going to get that is by signing up online. And I promise I'll never share your information with anybody else. Hey, thanks for your support of Profiling Evil. We'll see you soon at the next crime scene.